there are millions of Americans who are holding two jobs, trying to show up present at both of them. And we have the gall as employers in that moment to look at them and say, well, own your own development. You know what, screw you. I'm working hourly, every bit of what I can to be present and pay my bills in a society where that's not always so easy. So the idea that everybody out there can bridge their own gap, it just doesn't work. And so the way that I talk about this with employers is that we have a responsibility as employers to provide coaching, and not just to executives, right? Executives have gotten coaching for decades. How do we coach frontline employees? How do we help them in a way that they can own their own development? How do we teach them to fish in a way that is sustainable for both them and the organization on the long term? So I think this is, you hear a lot of passion in my voice around this, because ultimately, like, here's the plane I want to land on this. This isn't like me pointing at other people. I owned systems in a Fortune 100. I made decisions about who got access to what content, what features were turned on for what users. And in my mind, I was making decisions in the best interest, the best economic interest of my employer in terms of the cost that it took for that content to be maintained or people to go through programs, etc. What I did in that world is doubly invest in people who already had development, who already had access and tools, socioeconomic backgrounds that gave them the privilege of understanding how to develop themselves, while taking this like fast, untapped talent pool of employees and failing to give them the differentiated investment that would require to actually get better returns out of that workforce for my employer. And I think owning that passion that you hear from me is me staring myself in the mirror and understanding that decisions I make about, as a person who determines who gets access to what, has profound impacts on a much larger scale. And we should be really thoughtful about how we do that. And then once we've taught them that and given them the skills and resources, then we can more and more expect that they should own their own development. But everybody's not in that position today.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points. I see your perspective there for sure. I don't think I've always thought of it from different side, but when you describe it in such a way, it does make sense. Especially we see this more, I would say, in probably larger corporations, the smaller companies, because there's just more people, obviously more people from different backgrounds and so on. What's interesting is that it's admirable that you have that mindset, but I still,